Did you know Metriacanthosaurus was never originally intended to be in the game, and that technically, if things were a little bit different, we would have had something completely different instead? This is the story of that dinosaur, the dinosaur that almost was, and how Metriacanthosaurus came to be. Grab your popcorn and let's get right into this story. In 2019, Path of Titans had started its crowdfunding campaign. A campaign that would go on to see the game receive a vast amount of funding and allow it to reach stretch goals, reach more people, and ultimately help set the stage for the game to be where it is today. Although there was one key feature in this campaign that allowed the developers to expand the roster of the game while also increasing the revenue towards the game as well. And that was the ability to donate a set amount of money to purchase a specific dinosaur to come to the game, a dinosaur of your choice. Heck, some people even brought big dinosaurs like Eotriceratops, Tyrannosaurus, and Spinosaurus. All of those three dinosaurs came to the game through backers, donating money to get their favorite dinosaur to the game. But there was so much more. At times, people spent upwards of $2,000 to get a dinosaur into the game. But for half the value, you could also add a dinosaur to the game that could be a raptor, a stegosaur, or even a carnosaur. And that is what we're focusing on today, the Carnosauria perk. Because on the 17th of July, at 7:52 PM BST, the lead developer of the game posted that a user called Dawn Tyrant EO had purchased a Carnosauria perk and had decided to add Neovenator to the game. For those who don't know, Neovenator was a genus of Carcharodontosaurian theropod dinosaur. It lived in the Wessex Formation on the south coast of England, specifically around the Isle of Wight. This is a dinosaur that had a tumultuous past, with it being thought to be an Allosaurid upon its first discovery, perhaps even a Megaraptorian, which had been a subject of discussions for quite some time, until it was settled to be a member of the clade Carcharodontosauria, but within its own family, Neovenatoridae, although Neovenatoridae is up to debate still, often being parroted around when mentioning two other fragmentary dinosaurs, both Cyats and Chilantasaurus. However, it is very much considered a Carcharodontosaur, a dinosaur that clearly right now isn't in the roster of Path of Titans, and it was replaced. But why? What happened, and what was the creature meant to be like? Well, I was able to catch up and chat to Dawn Tyrant themselves about Neovenator, and thanks to them, we have some questions that were answered. To Dawn Tyrant, Neovenator was planned to be a Megaraptor adjacent playable. It was meant to be an assassin class with low health and stamina but high speed and attack power, with the ideal situation to be something that would be that it was not a mega predator. There was also drafted designs for the dinosaur by the backer. Although I was sent two, there's only one that was working, the other one seemed to no longer be existing. So that's what we knew it was meant to be like. A probable mid-tier, definitely not a mega predator, and it was an assassin. Potentially the most perfect assassin you could imagine. But clearly, it's not here. And that's because Dawn Tyrant had found a problem very quickly with their specific dinosaur that they chose. Neovenator was not the dinosaur they had in their head. The Neovenator in their mind was different to Neovenator of actuality. This was not a Megaraptorid, but as we mentioned, it was a Carcharodontosaur. This is the main reason as to why Neovenator wasn't originally added to the game. The Neovenator in the backer's head wasn't the same as the real life Neovenator. That left a very short tail for Neovenator, ultimately not coming to the game due to that small decision. Although it's not even the dinosaur of the smallest lifespan in the game, because that goes to Woolungasaurus, which I covered in this video on the screen that I recommend you check out. However, back to this, Dawn Tyrant had to find a new dinosaur, and the story doesn't stop here. As I said, there was two requisites before Dawn picked their perfect dinosaur. It couldn't be a mega predator, and it also had to be British, because Britain is glorious. Although at first, the idea that it must be British was ignored. Dawn flirted with the idea of both Acrocanthosaurus and even Carcharodontosaurus in the original stages of decision making before they originally settled on Neovenator. But because they were mega predators, they didn't fit the bill at all. Anyways, British carnivore that isn't a mega predator. We had a few of them. Perhaps Megalosaurus. A dinosaur that is probably the most well-known British dinosaur, and it was probably the perfect fit. But at the time, Megalosaurus was in another big dinosaur game, Beasts of Bermuda. And so, putting it in a rival game probably wasn't on the cards. So what about Metriacanthosaurus? Hailing from Oxford Clay Formation in England, this was as British as it got. In fact, Metri was pretty much second in the option list aside from Megalosaurus and even Neovenator. This was an easy pick as the replacement. And the question now was, how would Metriacanthosaurus play? Well, coincidentally to that, Dawn Tyrant had a plan. An 8-page document kind of plan, full of references, design ideas, the gameplay, the skins, and more. The dinosaur would be closely modelled off of Simraptor Dongi, being around 6.8 meters and 1 ton. The dinosaur would have very good attributes, very high acceleration, powerful attacks that would be utilised at speed, and the dinosaur would benefit from high strafing movement but low reach and a poor turning circle. It would be poor at tackling prey that's prepared to fight head on or that's defended from all sides, but it would excel at exploiting vulnerabilities the moment they appeared. It could have been a good scavenger, suggested to eat bones, have high base movement speed and high carrying capacity. And speaking of attacks, Dawn's Metriacanthosaurus would have a lot. There was a claw thrust, which would be where you hold to hug and thrash your enemies to deal additional damage. There was kick attacks that would be utilised while jumping. And there was 3 bite options, a downwards figure of 8 swing for a basic maul, a lunge that was better during charges, and a wide-jawed snap and grab. It didn't stop there though, there was 3 claw attack options as well, a grab and a lower down grab, which was for smaller dinosaurs, and a single-handed claw swipe, which could also be charged for a double-handed claw swipe. Then you add the 3 kicks, a maximum speed kick, a slash, and an agile kick that turns you around while kicking. The dinosaur was built to be the perfect assassin, modelled based off what Neovenator was going to be like in the game. And, well, a year later, November 23rd, 2020, it officially released into the game. But it was a little different to the plans that were originally put forward. It was a bleeder for starters, but it also utilised a new mechanic, venom. The skins and designs stuck true to what Dawn Tyrant wanted though. The dinosaur still felt like some form of assassin. It sat as a 2 slot, with Ceratosaurus being the bruiser of that category and Metri feeling more like a nimble assassin, aimed at exploiting the weaknesses and whittling down its opponents, just like how Dawn had planned. And I'm sure you all know where Metriacanthosaurus is now though. 5 years since its release, it's gone to be a 3 slot. Its venom has now been replaced with healing abilities, and it feels a little like a shell of its former self. Still stuck in some form of limbo from its original days, slightly strayed from the original version that Dawn Tyrant had in their mind. That is the story of Metriacanthosaurus's were-beings, how it came to the game, and ultimately the dinosaur that almost was, Neovenator. And there you go guys, that is the story of another dinosaur that I didn't even know was planned for the game. Neovenator, that's a pretty cool one. I kind of wish it came to the game, but Metriacanthosaurus is still cool. Imagine if we had Neovenator in the game and then someone said Metriacanthosaurus almost came to the game. I'm sure everyone would be like, oh my god, that would be awesome too. That being said, I hope you enjoyed. I'm now in my flat. This isn't the actual base fully. There's meant to be a bed behind me, it's just not here yet. So I've got so much space to stand in. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm finally moved and videos should be back to normal, and I can finally start working on the gameplay video again, which is great. Anyways, I'll see you all later in the next video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below about this story. Would you want Neo Venator in the game, or would you prefer Metriacanthosaurus as it is now? Let me know. And yeah, I'll see you later. Peace.